help them have peace, performance, and productivity. And what I've come to see in the last sort of 10, 15 years of my coaching career is different to what I saw in the first 10 years. And this is where Before Psychology was born. So what I see now is that actually there is such a degree of all those things I mentioned, performance, peace, and potential available to us, bar the fact we kind of get in our own way. Now you might think, well, what does that mean, get in our own way? Well, we actually get in our own way via our misunderstanding of our psychology and what we are, and by the misunderstanding not just of our individual thoughts, but of the nature of what we are. Now, Before Psychology, I point people back to see this and actually unlearn a lot of stuff that we've innocently, invisibly taken on board, thinking how we get the best out of our minds. Even actually a lot of the stuff I used to talk about in the first 10 years of my career, which is like, well, if you want to be more positive, you need to have positive thinking, you need to do this ritual, this practice, this psychological strategy, you need to have willpower to do this, you need to set this goal, all those things, which can have some great effect, but they tend to be a little bit tactical, as in they might wear off, or they're quite hard work psychologically. So you get to be in a good place, but it feels a little fragile because you're kind of going, well, I need to keep doing my X, Y, or Z, get up at 5 a.m. and do my journaling and my mantras and my mindfulness, and then I need to do this, and then I need to do, it's not a very long-term way of living life. And actually, it can take some of the juice out. And it's like chasing peak performance to peak performance. So now I point to something more fundamental, more profound, that actually has a really amazing practical turn up. So that's the context, right? Yeah, now people might be going, well, what are you on about, right? How are we getting in our own way? Well, there's one very meta, profound misunderstanding that we're all living in, and it starts when we're about 12 months old. So when we're about 12 months old, we start to listen to being told the fact that what we are is a separate me, right? That there's a Tom or a Piers or something, and that me is an entity in the world, separate to mummy and daddy and to trees and cars and, juice, and needs to go in the world and make stuff happen by having the right thoughts and the right actions, that has to find its well-being and okayness, which is probably tethered to how well you do at school, what trainers you wear, and how many friends you've got on TikTok, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
How many subscribers you've got.
How many subscribers you've got to your podcast, right? And if you're not doing well, then you've got to fix that and all this kind of stuff. So this misunderstanding comes in that all we've got is this psychological view of the world, right? Because that's how it appears to us, and it looks like we're separate to the world. In the if I go outside and walk towards a tree, then it looks like the tree gets closer the more I walk towards it. So of course I'm separate. And I look separate because I don't have the same thoughts as you do, right? So I can really like Tottenham Hotspur and you can really like Man City, and it's not the same, yeah? Or whichever way around that goes, right? So it would look like we're separate and we're individual. But then in certain moments, we experience what I would call being in the zone or being in flow. And this can happen when you're trading, this can happen when you're dancing, singing, running, cooking, having a chat with mates, watching a movie, right? We experience this being in the flow, being in the zone, where actually that apparent separation and duality that there's me in a world disappears, and instead I'm just in the moment. I've still got thoughts and perceptions coming in, right? I'm not an idiot. Actually, I'm the opposite of an idiot. I'm super resourceful, right? And I'm just in that, and it's got a beautiful feeling to it. It's got like the wind behind your sails, and you're just bang, 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 and the world comes towards you with serendipity and synchronicity, and that it's just a lovely place to be. Now, most people have experienced that flow and that zone.
Yes, yeah.
And then what we do is we go, I'd love some of that, please. Oh, bring it on. And what we accidentally do is go back into the separate me to try and find all that.
Yes.
Now, that flow is there when the me, the separate me, the appearance of separate me dissolves. We'd even say, oh, I lost myself in that moment, that conversation, in that thing. So the big misunderstanding is that we think we're a separate me. We think to be resourceful and stuff in the world, we have to do stuff in our heads. Actually, that's all a bit backwards.
Yeah,
now,
sure.
I can go into more of this in loads of detail, of course, but there's just a sort of bit of an overview to get curiosity tingling again.
Yeah, sure, Piers. And yeah, lots of great points. And yeah, we touched on some of those, and we'll go into a few of those in a bit more detail. And this, when we're in the zone, so as traders, we can relate. We're having days where, we cannot put a foot wrong, our trades are all going perfectly, unlike my January I've just had and February. But I would say when you're in the zone, is it always the case that things are going well? And then when you start thinking about me and all these other thoughts come into your head, it's because you're faced with something difficult or something has triggered you or you're emotional. How can we achieve this in the zone with even very difficult situations?
Yeah, great point. So what I'm hearing you say there is it sometimes appears easier to be in the zone when things are going well.
Yeah, when I'm
right?
chatting with friends down the pub or I'm reading a book or Liverpool have scored 4 goals, wonderful. But if I'm having a trade go against me or, something in my personal life, it's difficult to recreate the zone.
Yeah. Now, what you've pointed to there is brilliant, because what happens is the separate me, if it gets attached to an outcome, whether that's Liverpool winning or a good trade or our partner saying nice things about us or whatever, if we get attached to that and then that isn't what's going on in, let's call it the isness, and the isness is my fancy word for just what is, right? Just what's happening. So Liverpool lose or the trade doesn't go well. The appearance of that separate mind, that separate me, comes back in and goes, whoa, no, trade, don't do that. Oh, no, the market's popped the other way. Right? And it was attached to what this apparent circumstance of the market did. Right? And then then the separate me then creates meaning about that.
Yeah.
Right? And the meaning normally has the theme of this is not good for me, or this is not what I want, or there's a bit of me that's going to suffer now. Because we wouldn't care. Let's say there's a sport you don't care about. I don't know, the curling going on in Scotland. You could watch that and not care who wins, because the me doesn't feel threatened by the result of the game.
Sure. So
Right?
is it brought on by expectations of a certain result, or you desire a certain outcome? So like expectations and outcome driven are a bad thing for your mindset, or?
Well, they can be, depending on your relationship to them. Right? So let's say you're playing a game of Monopoly or a game of cards with some kids, right? And you don't really care about winning at all. You just want to have a lovely time. Right? You just want to enjoy the game. You don't care whether you win. But some people around the table, oh my gosh, they care. Right? So in that moment, you wouldn't care whether you won or lost. Right? Because the meaning the mind has made is that doesn't affect me. Right? Whether it rains or whether it's sunny, you're like, well, it doesn't affect me. Right? If you're a farmer, maybe you go, oh my gosh, it's rained, it's ruined my crops. It affects me. So it all comes back to this. We think this separate me can be affected. Right? So the neutrality we have to the outcome will make a massive difference. Right? So it's like, let's say you've had a great week of trades and one goes wrong. You're like, it doesn't matter. I'm still up on the week.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you'd had a bad week and then you had another bad one, you're like, oh my gosh, this is not good.
Yeah.
Right? Now, in the game of life, what I call the game of life, one could argue that does matter, because you're like, well, if I don't trade well enough, then I don't have a sustainable career. And then what does that mean for my mortgage, my bills,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. Now, So it's so easy for the mind to make it look like it matters, right? But when we start making that matter, our aperture, which I can go into in more detail, contracts, right? And actually our resourcefulness to change or affect the thing that's going on reduces, which is the irony, because we want it to go the other way around. We want to be more resourceful so we can sort the world of circumstance in a different way. So it's to do with the neutrality that we have. Now, some people might go, well, it's easy to be neutral about the weather or about a game I don't care about. It's not easy to be neutral about something else.
Sure.
Now, the degree that we're neutral all depends on whether this me thinks it's at threat or not.
Yeah.
Or at risk.
And will it all, you know, I'm playing sort of devil's advocate. Will we almost become not carefree about results or outcomes, or will we, you know, like you say, a trade? You know, I'm a full-time trader, and it's my livelihood. You know, if I have a string of bad trades, you know, it is impactful, but I try to be as calm and as calculated as I can about that. But I don't want to become too carefree. Also, there's a delicate balancing act there.
It's such a good question, Nat, because people have learned innocently, invisibly to say, if something's important, then you have to make it big psychologically, right? So, and actually that's not true. That's not true. Some of the most powerful things we do, we have very little thought about. So if you love someone, family member, right? Do you need to put lots of psychological effort and keep reminding yourself to love them in case you forget to? No. That love's just there. It doesn't care how much you think about it at one level, right? Now, what we've been taught is, well, you don't want to get lazy and apathetic, right? You need a bit of willpower and discipline. Otherwise, you could not care, and then suddenly your career be down the pan. That only matters on stuff that we don't want to do, right? So we have two systems, if you like. We have what I call motivation and willpower and discipline, and then just inspiration. For stuff we don't like doing our tax returns or putting the rubbish out, I'm just making stuff up, right? we might, right? You might love those, in which case you'll just do them without thinking about them. And actually, you don't need to care about them. You'll just do them. They just pop in the system because you love it. It's the stuff you do even if you didn't have to. It's the stuff you do. If I won the lottery, would I still do this? Yes, I would. Right? It just comes through with flow again, zone. Now, if we don't like doing stuff, we then feel like we have to psychologically get involved. Come on, Piers, do more of this. So that then makes us think, well, if I don't care about something, it's not important, which is not true. Right? And actually, the more you think about something, the more you're in your own way because you're in the way of that flow. So it's a bit of a misnomer to say I need pressure to perform. So it's what I call the pressure performance myth. No. Occasionally, if you've got someone who's slacking and doesn't like what they're doing, a bit of pressure can look like it works. That's only because they're not in their flow. Once they're in their flow, pressure actually gets in the way.
Yeah. It's never a good thing, really, you know?
No. So apathy is not the enemy we think it is once it's understood.
Sure.
Right? But the misnomer is, oh, if I stop caring, like psychologically caring, then I'll just do a bad job. Usually the opposite would be what I would spot in that.
Yeah. And that's also very true of some, because before I did trading and trading something I enjoy, I had a lot of 9-to-5 jobs that I just didn't care about. And ironically, I became good at them.
Right.
Because I just, I was still doing my job and everything, but I didn't put pressure on myself, and there was a sort of a freedom to that. And, I actually ended up performing better at these jobs because of that. I didn't care about them pretty much.
Do you know what? It's funny you say that, because sometimes people who hate a job, then when they know they're leaving it, right, they suddenly start enjoying it again. The inverse of that is someone who does things as a hobby. Yeah, maybe sometimes as a hobby, they're like a photographer or something, and they go, "I'm going to this as my business. I'm going to this as my business now," right? And then suddenly they don't like it, right? And here's something that people can spot, which might be helpful. And these are just words, so get behind the words. There's a difference between being invested and attached to something, like trading, and being engaged and committed. Right, now they're just words. The words themselves do not make a jot. But the aperture space that you're coming from is very different. Because generally, when we're attached and invested, the self thinks it's got something to lose by the outcome. Right? It will go into seek and protect mode, this apparent self. Now, when we're just engaged and committed, we're just in it, doing it. We love it. It's just interesting. We just enjoy it. But there's nothing at stake at the self level. So I make a distinction between, are you, is someone really invested and attached in that? Which means they think there's something at stake in terms of the self. Or is it just, I'm really engaged and committed? Yeah. They're different. But the invested and attached will bring a kind of different kind of energy than this just engaged and committed, which will bring just a flow and inspiration, and it will still bring all your resourcefulness.
Yeah, you can imagine completely different energies with those two approaches. One would be quite frantic, pressurized, results driven. Another one would be, like you say, more in the zone.
Yeah.
And this aperture, becomes closed or open, Piers. I mean, what are some of the feelings or things we will, witness with this?
So it's really useful to spot the aperture, not using our thoughts, right, but using sensation. So I'm just going to show a little chart. I'm sorry if people are listening. I'll talk it through as well. But I'm just going to share the screen and just show a little chart on this that people might relate to. So I'm just going to share this now, and hopefully people can see it. So you got that? Yeah, lovely.
Yep.
Right. So imagine at any moment there's being alive, there's sensations in being alive, right? Now, in some moments, we might be more on the left-hand side, the stuff written in red on this chart, which is we've got a little sense of tightness or tension. We might feel like we've got quite a lot going on, as you said, like a frantic mind. We've got a sense of urgency that needs to happen. There's like we're self-conscious. There's quite a lot of our own thinking going on about what's happening. Or we might feel a bit, on the other side, might feel quite withdrawn. We want to retract away from what's going on. Or we've got strong emotions. It feels like there's a lot of emotion there. And there's urges. I need that to happen. With food, you'll notice with the urges, I need that. You'll see that donut, right? I need that. And actually the breath even changes. It becomes higher up the body, a bit tighter and a bit shallower. Right? Now, in other moments, when we're more in that zone, being alive feels different. There's a spaciousness, there's an ease, there's an open kind of no contraction. We can feel more at one with what's around us, a person, a piece of nature, or even just whatever's in front of us. There's more just obviousness. There's no overthinking. There's clarity. We're very present, and just the breathing, the body is just more in a deep natural rhythm. Now, often we're in the middle of this, slightly to the left, but we don't realize it. So it's probably quite easy to spot that contracted when you're right down the left, because it's like, right? And, that's good. You wouldn't drive your car when you felt like that. And you wouldn't maybe send an email or do a trade when you felt like that, because you're like, no, I can't trade now. My head's all over the place. I'm going for a walk. Now, that's great that you spot that. But there's a really important bit to spot, which isn't quite as extreme to that, but you're still towards the left. So what people can start to do is to recalibrate and notice when they're heading down that way, but they haven't noticed it because the system's normalized it. Right? Now, when you come back from holiday, you've had a couple of weeks holiday or a couple of days, whatever, and it just feels more flow-like, yeah? Same things are going on, but you're more on the right. And you'd put that down to your holiday. Now, what I'm saying is you can have more of that right-hand side even when you're not on holiday. Yeah? So really get curious about the sensations that are going on. I'm just going to stop showing now. So, and that's going to tell you where you're at in this aperture. Now, the aperture is really important because it's telling you whether to believe the world that's presenting itself to you. It doesn't come from the world. That's the big mistake people have. They go, oh, yeah, my aperture was great until my trade went wrong. No. It's coming the other way around. So let me just pause and just see what you made of that, Tom.
So at that, so obviously when it comes to trading, I always tell traders to be on the expanded side. I didn't use these terms or some of the emotions and things you wrote on your chart, but I'm like, you need to be on the green side of that chart. But that's all very well for me to say. You know, it's like, how do we get to the expanded aperture? And there's many questions from that. So obviously we're all going to feel. So first of all, I tell everyone to be on the green side, but again, everyone's question will be how.
Yeah.
And then secondly, when I am on the contracted aperture and I'm feeling some of the tension or anxiety or impulsiveness, you know, the feelings in trading are like greed, impulsiveness, jubilation can be dangerous.
Yes.
You know, the opposite of that, a bad run of trades can be dangerous. Fear, greed. You know, we know that we're feeling them, but how can we move ourselves more towards the green and not keep away from the red? Because I imagine, I don't know, you tell me. I mean, I'd say it's impossible to keep away from the red side, but we need to be aware of it when we do.
Right. Great question. And I can see a couple of comments in the chat are pointing to this too. So, and there's a kind of a tactical answer and a profound answer to this. So let's just get into it a little bit practically. So what you start to see is that feeling you're in when you're going down the red side is helpful, right? It's useful because what it's doing, those sensations are telling the system not to buy into the presenting thoughts. So let's say you're in the red and you're getting some thoughts going, oh God, I'm just having a shocking day. It's not going well. I want to give up. Or, you know, I need to get my mind in a better place, right? It's that feeling system is saying, hey, don't buy into what you're seeing right now, right? It's a little warning signal going beep, 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 beep. Now, if we know that, we can go, oh, it's just my wonky thinking right now. It's just my wonky thinking. I don't need to buy into my wonky thinking. It's like checking the forecast on my phone when I'm not in reception, when I'm not in Wi-Fi. It's going to give me a bum forecast, right? I wouldn't buy into my phone if I knew it wasn't connected to the internet. So the feelings are not telling us about the outside world, events and circumstances. They're telling us about the aperture, which means I don't need to buy into my wonky thinking right now because it's all coming through the low quality of mind, the low aperture. Now, you might go, yeah, that's all very well, as you pointed to, but sometimes I can't stop that. I can't stop those, you know, blah, 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 that those thoughts machine gunning me in my head, and it feels icky.
And powerful they can be.
And they can feel really powerful. Right. Now, the more powerful they are, the more the system's going, don't listen. But we've been taught the more powerful they are, the more they go, I have to listen. Right? Now, when it feels like I have no choice but to buy into this thinking, right? That's where the slightly more profound part of what I point to comes in, right? And that's an invitation for us to go, okay, there's something here I'm not seeing about the nature of the self. You know, this self thing I keep banging on about, right? Because if we believe fundamentally that the self is this entity in the world, that it's what we are, I am the self, it can be affected by this world of trading going badly or wars or bank balances or people, right? Then I am going to have more of that red side coming in, and I'm not going to be able to see through it. It's going to look what I call real and true, and I'm going to be more welded to it. Once I start to recalibrate my system to see through that, you'll find it so much easier that when the red stuff does come up, just to go, okay, thank you, system, great feedback, rather than I'm buying into this. So there's what I call a recalibration that happens when we wake up to the nature of what we are, which might sound a bit sort of profound and big. It's not actually. It might just sound it now. So there's the tactical way, but I would really urge people not to get distracted by just fixing this tactically, but to see something more profound. And when people do, it's like valve moments. It's like, bosh, yeah. And then the world itself has less grip on you, and it will throw you off for a lot less time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you could just control that, your body is giving you feedback pretty much. When you start going down the red side, it's giving you feedback. And how best, like with any feedback, you need to read it. So how do we read this feedback? And does it present itself in the same way every time, or is it going to appear differently to me?
Two really important points there. So it doesn't always turn up in the same way. It might, but it can turn up through the body. It can turn up through thought. It can turn up through perception. So it will change its flavor of clothes, which I can talk more about. So it will turn up differently, right? But you start to notice it. Now, here's a really, really important thing. You just said something so fundamental there, right? You said, how do I read this feedback, right? How do I control it? Now, that's again going back to, there's a self me that needs to do this with the feedback. So question for you, if you wake up in the morning, right, and you've had a bad dream, right, you're like, do you do anything to make that dream go away?
Probably just dismiss it,
right. Exactly, it just dissolves as soon as we recognize the dreamness of it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, does a 2-year-old need to do anything for the tantrum to stop? Not really. No. They just go, right? There's no self that comes in and goes, dream, please switch off. I need to go away, dream. I'm going to fight you, dream. You shouldn't be in my mind. As soon as the system notices the dream, it pops. And even your heart, maybe you woke up and your heart was a bit blah, 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 blah after the dream, a minute later, you're like, and there might even be a little laugh. You're like, whew, gee whiz, I was in this funny dream.
What was I worried about?
What was I worried about? Guess what? In this dream, I thought, whatever, right? Yeah. So we don't do that. It happens. Yeah? Now, this is the key thing with psychology. Why we go before psychology, because sometimes we think, I need to make that happen. We'd never think a 2-year-old needed to go to therapy to get rid of their thinking, and we'd never think we have to get rid of a dream. Yet when we're in our rubbishy aperture, we go, I've got to fix that. Now, if the self thinks, I've got to fix that, it's attached to it going, which adds more psychology in, more thought in, which funny enough, keeps it stuck more.
Yeah, my first instinct, as you said, was to control the feedback.
Yeah.
I was like, how can I measure it? How can I react to it? How can I, it automatically become outcome result driven, which is exactly what you're saying not to do, just accept that it's there.
And that nudges the system to notice. So I on my programs talk about neutral noticing, right? So what we're saying is, by all means, notice the aperture contracting and some of that tension coming in. Notice it clock it, but don't fix on it and pay attention to it and try and rectify it. So the noticing is the beautiful revealing, the system revealing itself to you, like you'd notice the dream, but then you don't try and fix it. But as you said, our tendency for our psychology and conditioning is, I've noticed my aperture's contracted. How can I get rid of this? Which that means you're attached to the outcome of it going, which means your neutrality is gone, which means it won't disappear. And that's why 2-year-olds, because 2-year-olds don't care whether they're in a tantrum or not, right? No. They don't care if you're embarrassed in the supermarket, right? And then it pops. So it's that we accidentally flick modes from a neutral noticing into attention and fixing. And that's what we get in our own way of.
Sure.
Right.
And guys, just quickly, just point out, guys, that Piers, like I said, is founder of Quality of Mind, Exploring Before Psychology. He's focused on human performance, peace, and potential. And if you would like to learn more about what Piers has been talking about today, then please click on all his social media links below. He also has virtual workshops that you can be part of. So check all the social links out, guys, if you would like to know more. Also, guys, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and smash that like button if you're enjoying talking to Piers as much as we are. All right, then, Piers. So the red side of things, you know, the contracted aperture, we need to just recognize, and we don't need to fix it. We just need to know that they're there and don't let them sort of, you know, control us. I guess a lot of our traders and viewers will want to be, you know, like, how can we stick to the green side more? You know, how can we be in the zone, in the flow? You know, how can we feel, you know, just be in the rhythm of the market, as we say? You know, how can we achieve that side of things?
I mean, do you want the good news or the bad news on that?
We start with the bad and finish with the good.
The bad news is the very fact that we're asking that question in that way means we're heading the wrong direction, because there's nothing we can do about that.
Right. Okay.
Now, would you like the good news?
Yes, please. Yes.
The good news is there's nothing we need to do about that, right? So here's the thing. The more that we try to fix ourselves, the more we're getting in our own way. So going, I want to stay in the green. I want to stay in the green. Of course you do, right? That's what you've been taught, that being in the green is the best place to be, blah, 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 blah. But the very attachment to that is what's getting in the way of it. Now, you go, well, there must be something we can do, right? Because surely there's something we can do. Yes and no. Yes and no. So the more we try and do psychologically, the more it probably points in the wrong direction, or might tactically help, right? It might be like, oh, well, I'll meditate and then I'll do my trading, or I'll go for a run and I might do that. Now, here's a really interesting thing about practices, rituals, prescriptions, mindfulness, meditate, you know, all the things you might do, right? Sometimes they work. Of course they do. You know, you're all caught up. You go and have a nice yoga session or a run or just meditate. You feel better. You're back in the green. You're like, bingo, done. Now, do they work 100% of the time always? No. Right? Because sometimes they're coming through the system as obviousness, right? You know, we need a walk, we need some fresh air, we need to stretch the body. And it's exactly what the nature is doing to allow that aperture to open. You know, sometimes we'll just sigh, we'll just go, that's the system just going, breath will be good. Yeah. Right. It's just what the system does. It just sighs sometimes. Or we might just find we move our neck, we move around, or we change our eyes, or we just have we have a sip of water. You know, the system's beautifully blimmin' intelligent. Right.
It's
now,
doing these things without you even knowing.
Yeah. But then what we then try and do is reverse engineer that. And go, what I need to do when I'm not feeling good is have a glass of water and rotate my neck. Right? Now, what I'm saying is, if we can know, realize, recognize, deeply that there is a deeper intelligence in the system, right, that reveals itself and does its wonderful thing when we generally get out of the way, right, then that is super powerful. But the problem we've got there is like it's the difference between like sailing and rowing, right? Going, what, you asked me to put my oars down, my psychological oars, and wait for this wind thing, this intelligence of nature to come through? I don't think so, sunshine, right? Now, the problem is that if you're busy rowing, you don't notice the blooming wind, right? Or the wind's trying to blow you slightly to the left and you're rowing to the right. It's hard work. So we have to, there's an irony in that we have to kind of let go to see this come through. And the people that really want to find it don't find it because they're still rowing trying to find the wind. Yeah. So I am talking about something that may not make a lot of sense right now, but just pause this bit and maybe play it a few times later on and see whether you can see what I'm pointing to.
No, sure. Yeah, it's more rather than tactical things to, like you say, a jog or some meditation or a cup of coffee, whatever it might be, rather than these tactical things we can use, and some may work, just look at the root of this and focus on the fact that it's there. It's okay. Things are going to pop in now and again, but you just, I'm looking for the right words, you just carry on as normal regardless. Would that be the right words to use?
Yes. Well, and that may sound like apathy or, well, I'm not doing enough. What kind of trader am I? But actually, having a neutrality to the isness is the only answer, right? That doesn't mean we don't have preferences when we're in avatar form. Doesn't mean we don't have preferences. Of course we do, right? But so here's it at the meta level, right? Now, really see what this makes sense. It may make none. Any lack of resourcefulness, being in the red, any suffering, any unhappiness is only ever coming from one thing. And that is a resistance in the moment to the isness, right? What's turning up in perception, sensation, and thought. This, whatever this is. In my moment, at this moment, I've got some screens and I've got some sounds, right? Any lack of resourcefulness or unhappiness or suffering is coming from resistance to this. Now, all resistance is coming from one thing. This is super simple, this. All resistance is coming from one thing, and that's a self-identification with the me in that moment, with the separate me, the appearingly separate me. If that dissolves and we go back into the dynamic flow of what is, we have a load more resourcefulness and okayness. Right? So what's fascinating is that is far too simple for people to think is the key to everything. Now, if you just look at the chat, it's all about what's the practical exercise for this? What's the practical way? Have you got any tactical ways of doing that? Yes. I know you all love those. They're all beautiful, aren't they? They're great. But they are red herrings. I promise you, once you look in this slightly more what may look like abstract or profound direction and see that everything that we want is coming from one simple misunderstanding, this self-identification, everything else falls into place. But you can't see that if you're struggling around trying to find the tactics. So it's a little bit like, let's say someone had lots of problems with engineering and they couldn't make their engineering work when they're building something. It's because they don't understand physics, right? Once you understand gravity and hydraulic pressure, engineering's quite simple, yeah? If you don't understand physics, engineering's going to be hard. Yeah. So the reason we're all grappling around for these tactics and these, what can I do in the morning? What can I do in the afternoon? What can I do in there? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Is because we haven't understood the physics or the nature of the mind, because we've been innocently hoodwinked in in the wrong way.
Well, and it's we want things now culture. So if there is a problem, we want to cure it. I'm feeling anxious, I want to cure it immediately. If that's a jog, or I'm feeling jubilant, I've had 10 good trades. Maybe I don't want to fix that. Actually, I want that to keep going. But is that quick fix, and is that really what you're saying tactics are? They're trying to,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So modern society has got a little bit misunderstood. One has deified the self, right? I mean, massively. We've gone from we to me. So you look at some indigenous tribes and cultures, they're all about we, the collective. The Aboriginals, we are the land. So we've gone to this me thing, where the self is what it's all about. It's all about merit badging, me, Facebook likes, and me, money, me. And this, even in a nice way, with kids, we're told you've got to do a good job. You've got to be nice to each other, right? So we've got all me, and we've gone into quick fix, and we've gone into seeking comfort over freedom. Now, I can say a lot more about this, but what we do is we have certain feelings we don't like, so we want them to go away by fixing it, basically, right? Now, if we realize the human being is designed to feel, we can't die from a feeling, right? The full gamut of the human experience is available in the richness of being alive. Now, funny enough, we sometimes chase that by, running at Mount Everest or doing a marathon or doing some extreme sports or doing Tough Mudder or doing ayahuasca. So we are after these big feelings, but we want them on our terms, right? Whereas just a feeling of feeling uncomfortable in the day because your mind's a bit caught up by a trade, we're like, no, I need to avoid that, right? Because we make meaning about that. So you're absolutely right. We've got deification of the self, and we've gone from we to me, and we've gone to I need to fix this. And both of those are based on the same misunderstanding that we are a separate entity that can do that, and it can't. Right?
So,
and when we recognize that, more joy, peace, and resourcefulness comes out of the system. That's the irony.
Yeah, sure. And so I guess, I'm still, my questioning was going to be, like we still need a solution, which is the problem.
Sort of, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, how can we, my question always how, or, I need an answer. I need a solution to the problem. But I guess that there isn't one. It's just a case of, I'm trying to just understand that better. Is there a solution? Is there a way of dealing with it that we should all do every day?
Well, I think it's such a good question. Do feelings need solutions? Does life need a solution? And at one level, no, right? Because that's the self saying, I need things to be different to the is, to the now, right? And whenever we create that disconnect, we obviously are out of flow, yeah? Now, that doesn't mean there isn't things that will occur to us to do as a result of something, right? So the system is intelligent. The system that is in form of this world does do things. So if I feel a sense of thirst or hunger, I take a sip of water or have some food, right? So that is a solution. You could go, well, the system solved that. Or even if it's raining outside, I put my hood up, right? Not in Dubai, of course. But, so it's not like the system isn't intelligent. It's not like that we aren't a learning extravaganza whereby solutions don't appear to themselves. Of course they do. And depending on our conditioning and programming and exposure to all the wonderful things in this world, our solutions will be different. So the solution to someone who's an experienced trader and what to do in a particular time in the moment in the market will be different to the solution of someone who's on their first day. Right? The difference to a person who's an established soldier in a war when they see gunfire will be different to someone that isn't. So I'm not saying solutions won't appear. I'm just saying there's no chooser or thinker or doer of the solution. So that the challenge we have is our relationship to the need for the solution, not the fact that the solution might appear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so stop striving for solutions for everything. Some things can just be.
It's in the word strive an attachment to that's the challenge. So it's not, we don't have obviousness for a solution. It's in our need for a solution to fix. Because if we are coming, here's another way of saying it. If we are coming from scarcity in that I will be better when this solution has happened, we're already vibrating, if you like to use that word, at the level of lack. Right?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes things just happen really beautifully through synchronicity and serendipity when you kind of care less.
Yes.
Right? Because you're not coming from lack, you're coming from resonance. And when you're coming from resonance, creation happens. It's like, oh, the wind's behind my sails in this. Boom, boom, boom. Right?
Yeah.
That's because you weren't striving, to use your word, for the solution.
Yeah. No, yeah, really interesting, Piers. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so guys, again, yeah, if you're enjoying what Piers has to say, then please check out all his social links. And if you would like to know more, he runs regular workshops and online streams that you can take advantage of, guys. So go check out his links below. Don't forget to subscribe and smash the like button as well, guys. And if you haven't already, please come join our trading community, which is full of like-minded traders like yourself. Come join the free Discord channel. Piers, we'll finish with a few questions.
Yes.
If you can see the questions, Piers, you're more than welcome to sort of pick them out. I sent you a couple of questions from our trading community as well, but you know you can pick and choose which ones you want.
I was just reading them through, Tom. Actually, I did try and post a comment, but it didn't let me. But I'm just going to look at them a little bit and just tell you. So a great one from Noor. Do you think we do that because of our predefined beliefs and what we were taught in life growing up, and that's how we do that? So absolutely, we have been conditioned, societally conditioned by culture and by science, that we are a separate thing to the world. We have a paradigm of physicalism and materialism, and that's so embedded, but we don't even see it as conditioning, right? It's so embedded. But science is now changing its mind very slowly that we aren't separate, you know, consciousness. So it's absolutely predefined, but we can see through it. I promise you, and we can see through it so much quicker and easier than we think if we look in the right direction through direct inquiry. If you want to know more about that, I can send you stuff afterwards. So that's the Noor's question. And then Jimmy had a couple of questions here about practical exercises that help you think in terms of statistical probabilities rather than outcome by outcome events. And he said, on the back of that, do you think there are any other areas of life where we're thinking in terms of probabilities other than trading? So I think what that question means, right, is pointing to the fact that there's a feature in our minds, in our conditioned minds, that likes to try and simulate the future, right? Which is very practical at one level for avoiding the evolutionary need to avoid a waste of energy. So it tries to predict, where will the food be? Where will the water be? You know, back to when we needed to live off the land. If I go over there, will I be less energy than going over there? You know, so yes, the mind does like to simulate the future, right? It's not always accurate. Yeah? It gets it wrong so many times, right? And that's useful to know. Yeah? So statistics is an attempt for us to define and contain the unknown, because we love the certainty of a statistic. So sometimes people, you know, you can navigate through intuition or statistics. I mean, it's not quite that simple, but broadly, you know, like, well, intuitively, this feels the right thing to do. Or I go and look at statistics to decide what to do. Yeah? Now, isn't it interesting? Some traders are more intuitive, some are more statistical. And some are blending the both. And that's what I would say. I would say, by all means, dive into statistics, but have an intuitive feel about them. Allow both systems, left and right brain, some people call it, allow both. If you're just bound by statistics, you're going from the hard drive, right? If you can use the right-hand side of the chart, the green, you're using both systems to know when a statistic is just not where you need to be. I'm not sure that's what Jimmy meant, but that's what I answered.
Okay.
And then Brett, he wanted some tips for what to do in the morning when you wake up before you start and the end of the day. Well, if I had one word, I'd say breathe. I know we're always breathing, but breathe more deeply. That's great to reset the vagus nerve. But to go a little bit more than that, a question you can ask yourself whenever in your day, right? And it's really good to do at moments through the day, is what I call go back, right? Now, what does go back mean? It means spot how caught up in your psychology you are, right? So often some people might say we're in our heads, right? I'm in my thinking mind. And you wake up in the morning and it can happen within seconds. We get into our psychology. We get into our thinking mind. Now, mindfulness and meditation are trying to tools and techniques to get you out of that. But you can spend 30 seconds doing something. And what I'm going to suggest you do in that 30 seconds is you just disconnect the idea that you are the thing having all the thoughts, right? You see there's a difference between what's turning up in awareness, thoughts, perceptions, sensations, and the thing that's aware of it. So remember, we are the screen, not the movie. We are the sky, not the weather. I said more about this on the first episode we did, and I've got other videos on this. If we can just do that every couple of hours, it resets the system, right? It's not the same as a full mindfulness thing or meditation. It's literally just going, oh, I am the sky, not the weather. I am the screen, not the TV. It's just taking us back out of our psychology to see that it's just an emergence of things coming and going rather than it's happening to me, right? If it feels like it's happening to you, you're already in your psychology. So that may sound a little bit what you want about. If you want to know more about that, I've got some little videos on it. I can send it to you. But if you did that, for 3 times a day for 1 minute, it would make a difference.
Okay, brilliant. Any other questions, Piers?
Well, I'm just Jimmy just said, wasn't what I meant, but it's what I needed to hear. Okay. Like that, Jimmy. Well, if you want to message me afterwards or email me or whatever, Jimmy, about what the actual question was, great. But it's funny that sometimes often the question we ask isn't the question we meant, but actually the answer we got is the one we wanted to hear. So yeah, that's quite a nice way of synchronicity happening.
And one from David Cow that I thought might be interested, Piers, and how to maintain a mindset of neutrality when trading outcome affects our profit and loss. How to keep our mind in optimum condition when trading.
Yeah. Well, a lot of what we talked about today will point to this, but let me give you the summary answer, David. So just notice that attachment you have to the outcome. So when we're saying, okay, my outcome's now going to affect my profit and loss, which means it's going to, so then the implication is that's going to affect me and my life, right? So you've lost neutrality, understand, a very normal thing to do, right? Recognize there's part of you that is undamageable by trading outcomes and profit and losses. That capacity we have to be okay, to be in our peace, to be full of love, inspiration, fulfillment, enjoyment, resilience, creativity is never, ever, ever, ever damaged by a bank balance or the size of your real estate or anything, right? So it's not at stake. It looks like it's at stake. The aperture's probably gone a little contracted. Some of those sensations that we talked about are probably happening, David, right now. So you know not to buy into that thinking. So if it looks like, oh my God, I'm having a really bad day of trading, it's going to affect things. Not really, right? Only at the level that you make it matter. Right? And that's not apathy. That's pointing to the truth of the system. It doesn't affect you at your essence. It doesn't. But it looks like it does. It's real appearing true, but really it isn't. So use that as an aperture sign.
There's a part of us that's undamageable.
Absolutely, yeah. Whatever ever happens in life, it's like nothing that plays on your TV can damage your TV. Doesn't matter how bad the TV show is.
Yes. All right, Pierre. On that note, I think that's a nice positive note to leave it on. There's parts of us that are undamageable. I like this.
Yeah.
Piers, brilliant. Really enjoyed it once again. Thank you very much for your time. Guys, if you would like to know more and delve deeper into some of the subjects that Piers spoke about today, then please check out his social media, get in contact. He's got loads of great content, loads of great stuff to share with you guys if you would like to know more. Thank you very much, Piers, for your time, and hopefully see you again soon.
Yeah, and I will just extend an offer to people. I don't know whether you want to put this in the show notes or whatever. I work in face-to-face people. I work one-to-one. We've got a virtual program coming up. If people want to get on that program, I'll offer you guys from this show a discount to come and join us on this, and where we can really get into exploring this, because I know it's difficult, and in just the time we've had today, really exploring this in real time. It's an hour a day over 2 weeks, right? And you can join live, you can join in catch up, and you get to start to see this turning up in your life, to take it from the profound, which it might sound like, or the abstract, to the practical. So if people want some of that, maybe I'll put the details in the show notes, or you guys can send it out. I don't know what the easiest way of doing that is.
Yeah, we'll send that out, Piers. Let us know, more about it. Let us know about the discount. We'll send it out to our trading community. Happy to do that, Piers.
Yeah.
If that sounds good, guys, then get involved.
Brilliant. And I'm always up for answering questions. So just message me on LinkedIn or my email or whatever, piers@qualitymind.biz, or on LinkedIn or on YouTube, and I'll come back to you, because I love talking about this stuff. So thank you so much, everyone, for enjoying this, hopefully. And it's beautiful to be here.
Yeah, brilliant, Piers. Thank you very much. We'll see you again soon.
Take care. Cheers.